Rain had been falling since dusk, turning the streets into mirrors and the city into a map of shadows. Frank stepped out of the warehouse and stopped under a flickering light. The boss's words still tore through his skull. Your son? A lie? A hook? Or something worse, something he couldn't ignore. He drew a breath, slow and heavy. Whatever you've been hiding, he muttered, I'm going to rip into the light. Footsteps came fast behind him. Wolf! Frank didn't turn. The voice belonged to the young fighter he'd put down in the ring, nose bleeding, breath ragged, pride still intact. I didn't fight you for the money, the kid said, wiping his face. I fought you to say this. He's using you. Frank half turned. Talk. The boss, the kid whispered, glancing over his shoulder. He won't show you the boy, not yet. He says you have to prove yourself first. Says if you want to see him, you'll do what he asks. Frank's jaw tightened. The boy. Before the kid could say anything else, two heavy shapes peeled out of the darkness. The boss isn't done talking, one growled. Frank's patience broke clean. One punch dropped the first man. The second hit the wall before he could reach his blade. The kid flinched. Go home, Frank said, and don't come back to this place. He stepped into the rain and let it swallow him. The old gym hadn't changed. Rust, sweat, leather. The bell chain still rattled in the draft. Mick was there, driving hooks into a tired, heavy bag like it still owed him money. Been a long time, Wolf, Mick said without looking up. Too long, Frank answered. He set his coat on the ropes and stood there, hands loose at his sides. He said your son last night. Tonight it's a name, the boy. Mick missed a beat. The bag swung away and drifted back like it was listening. Where'd you hear that? Mick asked. From a kid the boss is using for bait, Frank said. He says the boss won't let me see him, not until I prove myself. Mick exhaled, eyes on the floor. That's his game. He doesn't beat you with fists, Frankie. He beats you with the things you can't walk away from. Frank leaned on the top rope. If the boy's out there, I'm not walking away. Mick nodded once, the way a man does when he knows he can't stop a storm. Then listen. If he wants proof, he wants a message sent to his own people. He'll put you in front of somebody mean, somebody everyone fears. He'll want them to watch you break. I won't break. That's not the point, Mick said quietly. The point is he thinks he owns the moment when you don't. Frank's hands closed into fists. Then I'm taking it from him. Midnight pulled the tide up over the rotting pylons down by the docks. The rain was a hiss now, the kind that crawled into your collar and stayed cold. Warehouse 11 had light bleeding through busted boards, laughter, the clink of glasses, the slow shuffle of money. Frank crossed the yard, and a door guard stepped forward, smiling like he knew a secret. No appointment, the guard said. Frank smiled back, the smile that happens right before everything goes wrong. The guard didn't finish a second sentence. The door gave way under his shoulder, and the room erupted. Chairs scraping, glass jumping, men swearing like it could stop what was coming. It didn't. By the time the noise found a corner to hide in, 3 men were on the floor, and a 4th was trying to breathe around a broken table leg. Frank stood in the middle of it all, steady, eyes up. The boss clapped once, slow, echoing. Still dramatic, Wolf. I like that. Frank didn't respond. The boss poured a drink he didn't need. You want answers. I want obedience. That's how this works. Where's the boy? Frank asked. The boss's smile was thin and practiced. That depends on you. He gestured. Men parted. A square had been taped out on the floor. Ropes hooked to pipe columns. A lamp hung low. The light a hard circle that meant business. Inside that circle stood a fighter Frank hadn't seen before. Older than the usual meat-scarred hands, eyes flat as coin. This is Corvo, the boss said. He's a reminder. People forget who runs this town. Corvo helps them remember. I'm not here for your theater, Frank said. You are now, the boss answered. You step in there. You give me the kind of proof that keeps my house in order. Win clean. No cheap shots, no knives, no bones sticking out for the cameras. And I'll consider letting you see the boy. Consider, Frank repeated. Earn the rest, the boss said. Trust is expensive. Frank stared at the man across the tape. Corvo rolled his shoulders once and did not blink. And if I walk? Frank asked. Then you don't see him, the boss said softly. Not ever. The room was quiet except for the rain ticking on sheet metal. Frank stepped under the lamp. The light cut hard lines across his face. Bell, the boss said. No bell, just the word, and the way the room took a breath. Corvo came forward like a truck in low gear, deliberate, no waste. The first jab was a test. Frank parried and felt the weight behind it. The second came faster. He slipped, countered to the body. Corvo didn't flinch. He smiled without his mouth. Again, the boss said to no one. Corvo obliged. Cross, hook, elbow buried short on the break. The crowd's noise rose, then fell, a tide in a bottle. Frank took the space, shook out his hands, let his feet remember angles they hadn't needed in years. Mick's voice lived somewhere behind his ear. Don't meet power. Make it miss, Corvo pressed. Frank pivoted, touched the ribs, stepped away. 2, 3 touches, nothing heavy, everything honest. The boss swirled his drink. Proof, he said, almost bored. Corvo caught Frank on the brow with a short right. The cut opened immediately, thin, hot, annoying. The room found its noise again. Frank blinked blood out of his eye and let the sting clear his head. Enough dancing, Corvo said, voice like gravel. Then stop missing, Frank answered. They collided in the center, shoulder to shoulder, hands working like old machines. Corvo's weight dug into the clinch. Frank's balance answered back. A knee rode up, illegal, dirty. Frank blocked with his hip, shoved off, and clipped Corvo's chin on the exit. The crowd inhaled. The boss's smile sharpened. There you are. Corvo reset and came hard, uppercut grazing, hook heavy. Frank rode the shot, let it slide. Then he saw it. A tiny hitch in Corvo's left shoulder every time he loaded power. Old injury, stiff, slow to come home. Frank touched it once, twice. Then he pivoted outside, drew the guard, and dropped the right hand into the open space the hitch left naked. Corvo's eyes finally changed. Frank pressed. Body, head, shoulder bump, step off hook. Not wild, not cruel. Just work. Corvo tried to maul. Frank let him lean, then spun free and stamped a straight right down the pipe. Corvo's legs thought about it and chose wrong. He stumbled, caught the rope, reached for balance that wasn't there, and went down on a knee. No bell, no count, just the room realizing what it had just seen. Frank backed up, hands down. We done? Corvo stood on pride and breath alone. He nodded once to the boss and put his hands out like he wanted more. The boss raised a finger. That's enough, he said. Corvo lowered his hands. The boss stepped to the edge of the light, glass untouched. Proof, he said, pleased now. My house remains in order. Frank's voice was steady. The boy. The boss's smile returned, slow and deliberate. You'll see him. When? When I say. He slipped a card from his pocket, set it on the edge of the ring. Tomorrow night, 9. Come alone. No coach, no ghosts. You get 5 minutes. If you say one wrong word, the lights go out and our conversation never happened. Frank stared at the card without reaching for it. If you've hurt him. If I had, the boss said lightly, you wouldn't be standing here. Silence held for a beat. Then the boss added, almost kindly, Sleep, Wolf. You'll need it. Frank stepped out of the light. The room parted. The rain took him back. He walked the docks until the city thinned to the bones of old pylons and black water. The wind carried salt and diesel. His cut ticked warm under the rain. He let the anger burn low. Not a blaze, a pilot light, controlled. He remembered the picture, the one in the envelope. Emma laughing into a wind that didn't care, a future that had no idea it was already borrowed. "The boy," he said into the night like a promise. The water didn't answer. It never did. He headed back through streets he knew too well, alleys that had swallowed men whole, corners that whispered names nobody said anymore. At the gym door he stopped, listened to the quiet, and chose to keep moving. Sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight. By dawn the rain eased to a mist. Frank stood in his kitchen, towel around his neck, the old gloves on the table like relics. He looked at them, then past them. Not backwards anymore. Forward. 9 o'clock would come. He would go alone. He would keep his hands down and his eyes open. He would count every word. And if the boss was lying, if C meant break, then the den would learn what a cornered animal really was. Frank picked up the card and slipped it into his pocket. The city exhaled. Somewhere, a gull cried. Somewhere else, a door opened and a day began. He stepped out to meet it. The wolf was hunting again, and this time, he wasn't hunting for blood. He was hunting for the truth, truth that would either save the boy or burn the city down.